Thank you. That's excellent. And I suppose the first country we're going to help is Syria. Next, we have our final speaker, appropriately Sok Sangvar, head of the Angkor Tourism Management Plan of APSARA National Authority in Cambodia. And he's going to help fill in the blanks about how Angkor became the site that we all enjoyed last night.
Well, it's always a hard job to be the last one to speak because I've always been asked to cut down the talk, but don't worry, I'll be presenting in a way that I hope that you will get something out of it. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and welcome to Angkor. So today, as the head of the tourism management of APSARA Authority, as in the authority in charge of the management of Angkor, I have the great pleasure to share our experience with all of us today about Angkor, often described as a major international reputation for conservation and one of the most powerful tourism draw cards. So for that, please allow me to spend some few minutes to actually provide some information in terms of Cambodia and tourism, because I do believe this will actually contribute to a better understanding about our actions and the results that we today have. So, tourism in Cambodia. Just have a brief descriptions for Cambodia. Despite we do have many destinations such as ecotourism or seaside tourism, but the main tourism of Cambodia is cultural tourism, where 80% would actually be visiting Angkor. And when we talk about cultural tourism, it's about Angkor, in the sense that Angkor is really the heart of our history and the heart of our culture. So now looking at tourism for Cambodia, tourism is one of the 4 pillars that would actually contribute to our economy. It's more than 10% of our GDP. It provides around 500,000 of jobs for the country, and it's a solution to our policy for poverty alleviations. So based on this important economic value for Cambodia and from tourism, tourism is actually not a luxury for Cambodia. It's not an extra income for the country, but it's a real need for the country in terms of the development of the country. So in addition to the economical value that Angkor provides to the country, Angkor has also a very strong cultural value in terms of for Cambodia, but of course to the world as well. So based on those 2 values, in terms of economical value and the cultural value, the government of Cambodia really consider tourism as a real paradox. And I think we do understand well here, as in being involved in the culture and in tourism, that tourism brings positive benefits, but of course also negative impacts. So the real challenge here is how to maximize these benefits and to minimize those impacts in order to reach sustainable development for the country and for Angkor. So when talking about sustainability in Angkor, it's not possible to not mention about the ICC Angkor, which is the International Coordinating Committee for Angkor, which since 20 years has been supporting, has been advising and monitoring the work that has been conducted in Angkor. So thanks to this work, we are now today a role model for conservation and a powerful draw card for tourism. So now looking more into details, how actually tourism has helped Angkor, So first, of course, tourism bring revenue in terms of the ticket sales. So what do we do with the revenue? Of course, 25% of this revenue would actually be re-injected to the work of Angkor, re-injected for the restoration work, re-injected for the researches to be done in Angkor, as well as the development projects, and of course the functioning of the APSARA Authority. From there, we have learned that actually tourism has helped to promote Angkor, to safeguard Angkor. In terms of tourism has been a key role as a vehicle to actually better allow visitors, to better allow people to better understand Angkor. And as you may have seen, if you've been to Angkor, all the inscriptions, all the carvings you see on the walls, it's really much telling what is our culture and what is our history. So based on I would say the philosophy of cultural tourism, I think the more people would know about a culture, it would mean the less risk that the culture will be forgotten. But on the contrary, will mean the more chance that our culture will be preserved and as well as promoted actually around the world. So this has also allowed actually the country to actually, allow Angkor actually to be the new face of Cambodia. It's not what we used to know I would say in a few years ago, where Cambodia used to be a poor country with mines, with beggars and poverty. But Cambodia, thanks to Angkor, has a new image in terms of a place as a cultural place, with a country with a rich and tangible and intangible heritage. So tourism in Angkor has also contributed to the local community. So how? Of course, tourism has created business opportunity. Many local communities live from tourism. Many local communities would live from handicraft, making souvenirs to the visitors, having jobs from the activity of tourism in the park. So it is clear there is a real improvement of the standard of living in the park. I was very touched one day when I talked to one of the villagers in the park, mentioning that thanks to the tourists coming to Angkor, my daughter used actually to go to school by walk, but now she has a bicycle. My older brother has a bicycle, but now has a motorbikes. And myself, I used to go to work by motorbikes, but now I have a car. So it's clear that the impact has been very contributing to the local community. So of course, faced with this, we also have some challenges that tourism has actually created to Angkor. So if not well managed, as the topic was mentioned, impacts could be on the visiting experience, impacts could be on the temples, impacts could be on the culture and social as well as environment. So facing to those challenges, APSARA has actually decided to face the challenges actually. So how do we do it? So one of the main key components is actually we are implementing what we call the tourism management plan, in which we have developed some regulations, we're developing visitor code of conduct, we have developing some carrying capacity that I can go into detail after that. We have managed the flow in terms of having some circuits into the temples. We have actually revised our transport systems. We have built our capacity as well as education programs to the villagers. So, since the topic of the conference is very much about building partnerships, I would like to share one of the, I would say, success story that has allowed APSARA to well manage Angkor, and it's about partnerships. It is true that nowadays we do have many partners in APSARA. So first, at the international level, we do work very closely with the ICC experts who currently follow up our work. We have actually became an affiliate member of the UNWTO. We have actually created a special group actually that we called the APSARA Private Sectors Working Group, which is about consulting ideas with the private sectors and raising new solutions. We're actually working with the local communities, as well as we actually partnering with the youth, where we often actually organize events and the national events that we organize for 3 years now in Angkor. And we also do work with the NGOs. So, as a conclusion, I'd like to say that for Angkor, tourism is a need for Angkor. But Angkor is also a need for tourism. And that's why we do have our concept in APSARA is about conservation for the development and development for the conservation. And tourism, we do consider as a real paradox that we really have to deal with, I think, with honesty and courage. We have to be able to say, okay, we have problems, either we deal ourselves or we look for partners. So, of course, we, since 20 years, realize that partnerships is very important, is very one of the crucial key, actually, for the sustainability of Angkor. So on this, I'd like to thank you very much for my talk.
So, thank you very much. So, that was excellent. Thank you. Because of the time, we're going to go straight to the floor. I think the one theme I got from this is that there's a certain dynamism so that a solution that works one day doesn't work tomorrow, and I believe a lot of you have dealt with these issues, so please come to the microphone, ask questions of our panelists, and tell us a bit about your experience. Are there any questions? Or comments? Yes, please. Ms. Santange. Are there microphones, please, for the questions? Microphones, please, for the questions? Here. I'll bring you mine.
Thank you very much. No, I listened with interest, the different presentations, but I think where do we go from there? We've all explained what we're doing. How do we protect it in the future? I've listened to the delegate from Australia who spoke with conviction how to protect and showcase the Aboriginal case and how to get them more recognized and in one way find their place truthfully in the Australian day-to-day lives. I've listened to the sunken ship presented by Great Britain. It is all items that are there today. But how do we go forward as a country? And in so doing, how do we move forward as a community of nations, which is why we are here for, so that we can pick what you are trying to do and embody it into our own frame of mind and our own policies. But to get to that, we must come out of this round table with a way forward. And this is where I feel we should try and get some ideas. How do we move it forward? How do we embody this culture of preservation, but also of recognition of what we are preserving? I don't know if I can get that quite clear, but...
Does anyone want to answer? Want to take a stab at it?
In response, I think there's a lot of discussion yesterday about partnership, and I know it's a pretty broad and glib sort of response. But what I was trying to outline was that there is the basis, whether it's indigenous people or whether it's cultural sites or whatever. I think it's a partnership based on recognized common values and sharing to ensure equitable outcomes, whether it's either for the indigenous people themselves or the interests of cultural preservation along with tourism. I think there is a great opportunity purely and simply by understanding where each group is coming from, what their particular values are, that we can establish win-win situations.
Okay. And I must say, in my research for my book, the most common problem I found was the conflict for the tourism industry wanting to make profits and the government's multiple issues of protecting the local community and that cultural site. And that's a lot of negotiation. Charles, and then we have a member of the audience.
Oui, merci Elisabeth. Effectivement, la question qui est abordée s'agissant de... C'est un vrai paradoxe, n'est-ce pas, la nécessité de protéger notamment les sites naturels, ce qui est inscrit dans les réserves de biosphère et tout le reste, et en même temps de garantir l'évolution des personnes sur ce site-là est un véritable enjeu aujourd'hui. Vous savez, il y a des populations qui ont été quelquefois ghettoisées dans leur propre milieu au profit de la nature, ce qui pose évidemment un cas de conscience, un problème d'éthique pour la conservation, pour la préservation. Et je crois que c'est des problèmes auxquels il faut s'attaquer. De notre point de vue, en tant qu'institution, nous préconisons, en ce qui concerne notamment l'Afrique, de sortir des épistémologies d'enfermement et de reconsidérer les notions elles-mêmes et les concepts en sorte qu'on développe de nouveaux modèles qui permettent à la fois de vivre aux populations de vivre, c'est-à-dire de respecter l'homme dans son milieu, mais de savoir que l'homme n'est pas une bête à confiner dans un milieu pour que le milieu survive, mais au contraire que le milieu doit évoluer avec l'homme en essayant de ménager à la fois, disons-le comme cela, la chèvre humaine et le chou de la nature. Voilà ce que je dirais à ce niveau.
The gentleman up in front.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm Corrado Politi. I'm working.
Could you speak louder, please?
Okay, my name is Corrado Politi. I'm working for UNAN in this moment. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great opportunity to inform you of magnificent European industrial and Chinese heritage is the Hanoi Kunming Railways. And many of you are aware about this, and I transfer my message to the Chinese delegation in the room because it's 100 years old, created by the French, Italian and German, and 35,000 Chinese. Is a fantastic landscape. More than 20 minorities live around the railways. The railways is already dismissed because we have a new railways going from Kunming to Hanoi. That have to be safeguarded. Please, anybody who have contact, relations, friends, contact me because we have a short of time. UNESCO is already inside. Bandarin was make a visit a few months ago. Also, Eiffel Foundation will try to save the site. Is a very important thing. So it will be a good things for humanity.
Thank you so much. And there was a gentleman here. No, behind you. There, yes. Yes, he was the first one.
Thank you. I am a regional advisor in information communication technologies for the regional commissions, ESCWA and ESCAP. And I have been observing that the in the national plans, development, 5-year national development plans of many developing countries, over 40 countries I've been serving with, they don't emphasize culture in part of their at highest level in strategic planning. Unfortunately, culture, mostly in developing countries, is low in the priority thing. Now, we have this golden opportunity that you are combining culture and tourism promotes economy directly. So I hope that the documents that UNESCO did about the policies and strategies of culture somehow be activated strongly to this thing. And the second question, I haven't heard a buzzword, a magic word. It's not only because it's a buzzword, but I think there's a lot of it, of significance to it. Innovation. We should invest in developing innovation among our youth in the early 20s. Those are the ones who would, if they encourage them to innovate about culture industry, creative industry as such, I think that will be a very positive step ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very good words and very good encouragement. There's a woman over here. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Paola Gomez. I'm from Panama, and I'm focusing from the National Institute of Culture. More than anything, I have had now the doubt hearing Mr. Dodd and hearing Mr. King about when is it that we have to reinvent our product versus taking care of our actual culture. Because sometimes that can be a tricky line to walk upon. And the other thing that I would like to know is, in your experiences, what's better, to give the majority of the responsibility of natural heritage sites and their being taken care of to the government, to the private sector, or a mix between both? Thank you very much.
Well, if I could start by answering that. To start by answering that, you were talking about reinvention, and that's something I mentioned. And I think what we need to do as an independent attraction, when I say reinvention, it's really just to make it relevant to a new audience. So we have a museum that works very well for 10 years, and then it's like a product. It goes off, and that doesn't mean you can't do it with integrity and honesty that I was talking about earlier. So that reinvention is, for us, to make sure that it stays relevant. So that's what I would reply on that score.
I think from the indigenous point of view, the reinvention is really, I guess, a change in perception of the role of these indigenous cultures, the intangible cultures that we've been talking about. In the past, I think it's been, as I mentioned in my comments earlier, it's been about providing background, color, and movement. More and more, I think, as the tourism industry is more about engagement and experience, I think, as has been mentioned, that there is a need for greater relevance of projecting and promoting indigenous cultures with greater relevance to people, and also the other 2 points that were made earlier, ensuring absolute authenticity and integrity in the promotion and interpretation of those cultures, I think not only helps ensure the preservation, but it increases the value of the experience and the enrichment of the experience that visitors have.
Yeah. Yes, right here in the front. Yes, you. Right there. Yeah. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Pour le Sénégal, quand même, je dois dire que cette opportunité, nous l'avons saisie au rebond, tout de suite, en préparant déjà cette conférence et en venant déjà à 4, tourisme et culture. Donc nous sommes à peu près là pour apprendre et tout de suite pour mettre sur place une stratégie nationale. Je pense que le processus est enclenché. Ma question, c'est beaucoup plus sur le patrimoine subaquatique. Parce que là, quand même, nous sommes sûrs d'avoir une richesse exceptionnelle, pas le Sénégal uniquement, mais l'ensemble des pays qui longent la côte de l'Afrique par rapport à l'esclavage. C'est extrêmement important et nous n'avons pas les possibilités de faire ces fouilles archéologiques. La plongée sous-marine est spéciale et très riche, et très très coûteuse. De Luango, en passant par Elmina, Ouida, jusqu'à Gorée, je suis presque certain qu'il y a des richesses énormes. Et comment faire par rapport un peu à cet aspect-là? C'est beaucoup plus, c'est même pas facile pour le patrimoine matériel et immatériel, les sites et monuments, mais encore si c'est le patrimoine subaquatique, là nous avons réellement des problèmes de ressources humaines. Voilà la question vraiment que je voulais pointer par rapport à cette route, par exemple, de l'esclavage atlantique. Merci.
You have raised a very pertinent question, and I think the 2001 Underwater Heritage, Cultural Heritage Convention that UNESCO has promoted is precisely for this purpose, to be able to safeguard cultural heritage which is underwater, both in the sea and in inland waters. And the idea there is not only to excavate and to be able to take it off-site and preserve it, but also to do in situ conservation. And not always does the remains lend itself to visitation. It may not be possible. Because it also opens up the risk of pillage and commercial exploitation. So safeguarding heritage where it exists, but to be able to do that, you have to first identify it. Clearly, there is the issue of resources, both technical and financial, which need to be mobilized to be able to undertake these surveys and to identify where these heritage sites lie. So it is a challenging task, but we are trying to help countries who have ratified the convention in dealing with this problem.
And if I could just add, I mentioned a training scheme I can tell you more about, but I think it's absolutely right that this is your heritage. It doesn't belong to someone else. And so it's important to get the skills in your country, and there are many countries who'd be willing to help you with that to help mankind, because this culture, we all have a joint responsibility for it, but it's your heritage. And so I just think it's so important, as was said, that if it's safe down there, if it's not being ruined by either environment or man, it's best left there. But if you have a real risk to the heritage, that's when you need to start investigating and seeing the best ways of doing it, and not to sell out to treasure hunters. There are many archaeologists who'd love to help you, rather than have treasure hunters moving in and paying you lots of money, but they get even more money. But thank you for the point.
This is going to be our last question, but I invite everyone to come up here during coffee break and have a discussion. I'm really sorry. Last question.
My name is Peter Wong. I'm the chairman of China Chamber of Tourism. And personally, I'm a heritage developer. There's one question I'd like to especially address to UNESCO. We talk of partnership this morning. Actually, one of the most successful projects that was done in partnership with UNESCO is the island of Bali. In the 60s, the Indonesian government gave UN the design of the whole Bali island. And from that, actually, UNESCO was actually working on that project. And now we all know Bali is one of the most successful tourist destinations in the world. Now, why is it UNESCO not do more? Something like maybe now even in Cambodia, we have such a great heritage. Instead of just, I think besides advising, and we are seeing also UN in the past 20, 30 years have more agencies. But I think that if we are talking of partnership initiative, should be coming out of bodies like UNWTO, UNESCO, to really take the bull by the horn. Thank you.
No, thank you for your comment. But I think UNESCO is doing a lot in terms of supporting different countries, especially the least developed countries, developing countries, small island developing states, to help them not only to build their institutions and laws and regulations, building capacity to enable them to safeguard their heritage, but we also work on specific projects of restoration, of trying to promote their heritage. Bali example you gave, it was a sustained partnership with them which took almost 10 years before the site became ready to be inscribed on the World Heritage List. So you have to build the local capacity. It's not just as though UNESCO comes in and implements a particular project. It is to be able to enable the countries to safeguard their own heritage that we strive, and all our programs are aimed at doing that. We don't only work institutionally only as UNESCO, but with all partners, including the private sector. Many of our projects are funded by the private sector. There are bilateral and multilateral agencies which support us. So it has to be a true partnership when we go and intervene at particular sites to be able to help those countries take care of those sites for the long term. So there are several examples that I can provide you, but we can certainly have that conversation during the break.
The last word naturally goes to Sok, and then I want to thank everyone for your patience and for contributing so much. Go ahead, Sok.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'd just like to support what Kishore mentioned earlier in terms of UNESCO and supporting the activity on the heritage sites. I think for us, we sometimes hear nowadays that ICC Angkor is a model for the conservations. So I'd like to share a bit how do we became some of these models. And I think one of the key point of this is very much the political willing from the country, where actually it is clear for us, we take this seriously, and we really put our efforts in terms of the conservations. But in terms of the 20 years partnerships, it's not about always expecting UNESCO, UNESCO, UNESCO. It's also about the country making efforts. And I think for this, in 20 years, we've seen on how our local experts has received knowledge actually from the international experts. We became 20 years ago as a APSARA, as a assisted partner, where all the money. Hello. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, where actually all the conservation project was assisted by international donors. But then, since the tourism has came up, where we actually has our own resources, we became a partner in terms of as an authority, where we also now put our own money actually to reserve to finance some project that is in the temple, and our experts now has the knowledge. We used before to be actually learning from the experts, but now we also teach the international experts on our techniques, our ancient techniques on how to restore the temple, and even more. We actually also go outside of Cambodia actually to advise other countries on how to restore some project actually. So I think it's not about always expecting and waiting for UNESCO to really coming and assisting. Of course, it's a great start, I think, but I think it's also the duty of the country host to really actually make efforts to be able to say in 50 years or 10 years that thank you, you have a great start, and now we're actually able to work ourselves. And even more, we're able to help other people, actually, other countries that's in need. So I think I would like to conclude by that on ICC. Thank you.